Hello and welcome to this episode of Star Revelations with myself, Morgana Sophia, and the gorgeous Maria Jones. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Twinkles just came to sit on the microphone just as we pressed record in true Mercury style.
So today we are bringing forward a podcast. We are recording this on the 3rd of July. Seems important because tomorrow we have the Mars Urania conjunction. And as ever, you can have our unhinged thoughts. We are highly caffeinated, and just before we pressed record, we decided to dissolve into a fit of giggles. So welcome to our Mercury retrograde recording. Maria, tomorrow, Urania, the red goddess, meets the red goddess Mars in Gemini. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think, we've touched on this conjunction a little bit previously, but we've really been in the energy of it for the past couple of days. And I think, many people can feel probably a bit of electricity building in the air because we've not only got that, we've also got the friction of Mercury retrograde in square to Eris at the end of Aries as well. So, whereas the Mercury in Cancer energy is really taking us into that internal processing, we know that Mars Urania can be very volatile. Mercury interruptions.
There you go. But I was finding this energy being very volatile personally, but also in the collective as well. So I have noticed, obviously I'm not a natural redhead, but I like to aspire to being one, but I am an Aries, and I have really felt that energy, that kind of Aries anger mixed with my Sagittarius self-righteousness has been really festering over the few days. And for me personally, having to bite my tongue a few times before I exploded like a small volcano. But I'm feeling that personally for me in my chart, my life, but also we're starting to see that in the collective as well. These kind of volcanic eruptions locally. And as I'm talking to you now, I can almost see the ring of fire with the Pacific, with all the different volcanoes just triggering off for various things, whether that's been whipped up in order to make us explode, or that's just the collective kind of explosion coming along. It does feel very fiery at the moment, even though it's that Gemini wars of words as well is really coming up.
Absolutely. I think Mars and Gemini is always really reflective of, words are weapons. There's a lot of power behind words. So I think this is where astrology can be really, really useful. Because if you don't know that these energies are around, that there's a Mercury retrograde and a Mars Urania conjunction, you're much more likely to be reactive and respond to other people's reactivity. So for those of us who know astrology, I can sit here and I can say, yeah, I'm really irritated because there's a lot more noise going on than I would like. The neighbors are playing their music really loud and I'm trying to meditate or whatever it is. Or my favorite someone's on my machine in the gym that I was just about to use, this yeah, that was very rude. But I can know that, I can choose my response to that. So rather than letting my nervous system get really jangled, which is what can happen, or overwhelmed with these energies, when you look at your phone and you've just cleared out your inbox and then you've got another million emails, you can really just kind of sit with it and know that it will pass. And you can access some of the higher octaves of this energy, which can bring through a lot of breakthroughs. A lot of Uranus wants to liberate us, and in Gemini, she really wants to liberate us from our old entrenched thought patterns. So it's like, how can I choose a different perspective about this? I was doing some tarot spreads the other day for myself, and I kept pulling the Hanged Man, which can be limbo or waiting, but also it can be, you know, when you're upside down, you have a different perspective on the world. So I was reflecting on that, and just, I think just knowing and being aware of it, you can say, right, I'm going to step away from social media today. I'm going to go out and just be in nature or move the energy through me in some way, rather than scrolling and just being, you know, outraged.
Although, to be fair, I do like a little bit of outrage every now and again, but you're absolutely right. And please, when you're listening to this, do not think that we are by any means or any stretch of the imagination are perfect at mastering this sometimes as well. And I think that's for me, I've really noticed this sort of energy with spiritual teachers. Oh, this is what we all need to do. And, you know, giving this veneer and facade that, you know, everything's under control and everything is very light and initiations, we're just moving through them. You know, underneath that, and as you and I demonstrate whenever we're doing podcasts, is actually we're human, we're all going through this as well. So don't think that we've got this sorted and we're utterly perfect in this, because we're all here and we're all learning. And I think that's part of what we want to share is our truth as well, that there isn't a facade. What you see on the podcast is what you get in real life as well. We don't gloss over some of the more tricky initiations that we are going through. And you know, the rage is real at times. And why not, why lie about that? That's my Mercury retrograde rant about people kind of not really being truthful about what they're experiencing, particularly because this retrograde is deeply emotional, and we are like the Hanged Man at the moment in that kind of mercurial mist of murk.
Absolutely. And I think that's another way that astrology can be really helpful as well, because you know yourself. So you and I, both being Aries, know that we have a propensity to be quite volcanic. You know, that's generally the first response. And then it's kind of, okay, maybe I should think before I speak, you know, Mercury in Aries. And it's a skill that you learn over time once you become aware of your astrology. But some of you who are a bit more watery, you know, you can find this energy maybe challenging in other ways, you know. It might force you out of your comfort zone, or, you know, maybe you have a lot of Cancer placements yourself, and this is really amplifying that tendency you have to ruminate and think about the past and hold yourself back. So it's like, how is this interacting with my own energy? Because we're never the victim of astrology. And I know we're going to get into this topic a little bit today, but this is what I always say to the students is, you know, we're never a victim of astrology. You know, astrology is a system of self-realization through initiation in the planetary temples of the goddess. So it's not like, oh, you know, the planets are doing these terrible things to me, or, you know, the energy's really bad and I'm going to not go outside. It's Mercury retrograde. I'm not going to do anything. You know, I'm going to hide away. You know, that is not the way that astrology is designed to be utilized. You know, it's more like, how can I develop mastery over this circumstance? There's a famous teaching by Yogananda, and he used to teach his students to do things on the worst astrological day possible, just to show that, you know, you have mastery over these energies, you know. So it's all in the perspective of it, but we can't choose our perspectives unless we really know astrology, because, you know, if you go down to Sainsbury's this afternoon, you'll probably find a lot of frustrated people, you know. And, you know, we're going to see a lot in the collective probably over the weekend. Hopefully nothing as dramatic as what a lot of astrologers are predicting, because there is some fear mongering going on, to say the least.
Well, should we dive into that a little bit and be a little bit kind of down with the kids? So, tomorrow, when the conjunction is exact, is the 4th of July. So, our American listeners, we're putting this out on the 4th of July. So, our American listeners, happy 4th. I hope you have a lovely day. But also in the collective today, talking about badly timed astrology, or maybe she knows more than we know. Taylor Swift. Let's just bring her into the conversation. So we're having a bit of a Taylor day as opposed to a Bonnie Blue day. And actually, she's getting married either today or tomorrow. We're not really sure. Um, this Mars Urania conjunction in a Mercury retrograde. Chiron will still be square to Jupiter. It's a very interesting energy to be making a lifelong commitment, Taylor. What do you know that we don't?
Mm.
And I just think that's a really interesting reflection because everybody's watching that at the moment. You know, trendy people are watching that. That's the distraction. What's actually going to be in the collective? Why are we all being asked to focus on this event at this particular time?
Absolutely. And I didn't know that Taylor Swift was getting married until I saw your post about it yesterday, actually. And I just, it was really interesting to me because we also had that big thing in the news where those two people climbed the Empire State Building and there was a
Mm.
proposal as well. And I just thought, oh, these are really interesting distractions and uses of Jupiter and Venus in Leo, actually, because I know that, obviously these people have Netflix series and music to promote as well. So it's like, why are we having our attention diverted to these things? And yeah, what is really going on? Because I think in the uh, American chart, I'm pretty sure that the Declaration of Independence was signed under Uranus in Gemini, and I think Mars in Gemini as well. And then they had the 4th of July a little bit later, the first 4th of July, when they were conjunct. So it's very interesting that the same conjunction is happening on the 4th of July, and we've got Taylor Swift getting married, and what else can be going on this weekend?
Well, absolutely. So obviously Urania is the rebel. It's all about distraction, all about revolution. But I'm also thinking the big distraction, obviously, is a wedding in a Mercury retrograde with a lot of celebrities being there. I can't help thinking that that is almost a gathering of energy in order to seed something. I'm getting very conspiratorial today, but it feels very much like there's a reason that this has been arranged on this particular day in order to have a lot of attention, energy harvesting, essentially. Let's be really honest about it. And as we've talked before about this Mercury retrograde, it's very murky. You and I haven't really been able to see beyond it at times when we've kind of looked into the energy. So this for me feels like a bit of a collective spark point that could ignite something else. Um, yeah, always worries me when there's a gathering of lots of famous people because what are they actually doing when they're there?
I think good, I would imagine. Probably the
A little
answer
rabbit
to
hole we
that.
didn't expect.
Yeah, let's not go down that road today. But I think, yeah, what we really wanted to think about was the amount of fear mongering that is going on around this conjunction. Like Mars doesn't conjoin Urania around every 2.5 years. You sometimes in the same sign, sometimes in a different sign. The last one we had was in Taurus, and we'll have the next few in Gemini over the next 7 years. So it's really interesting to track these cycles and note what is happening and unfolding at each of these seed points, because it is a conjunction, which is the beginning of a new cycle and a new sign for these two planets. So it sets the tone for many things. And what is really interesting is that it's also in square to the node. So it is that real choice point. I think this can be a very fated weekend in many ways for many people. So the things that are set into motion around this time, you know, whether we see them or whether we're distracted by the elites, very Jupiter opposite Pluto.
Very.
You know, the things that are set into motion at this time can have a huge impact on us for the next 84 years. So it's really interesting to think about what else Gemini rules over. This Uranus and Gemini energy is very much about the advancement of technology. It's about freedom of information. Freedom on all levels. And she's in trine to Pluto in Aquarius, which again we're going to come around to a little bit later, I think, when we talk about the basket. But you know, this can be a time when there can be volatile communication, but also there can be breakthrough news. There can be surprising ideas. There can be, you know, a message arrives that changes your life. You know, so there are many manifestations of this, but there's definitely something brewing, I think, on the collective as we've touched on. And I won't speculate too much on that because we don't want to go into that fear mongering type of energy.
No, and in this podcast we shall remain ever cheerful because the last few we've been
yeah, thank you if you're still listening to us.
Don't panic, we've both had about 3 cups of coffee this morning before we even pressed record. So. But I think it is a seed point, and we always have to remember that although the conjunction is a day or several days, actually the energy can ripple out. So it doesn't literally have to be on that day that something happens. It could be either side of it as well. So really being aware over, you know, what's happened this week for you, but also what's happening over the next few weeks for you, and just noticing what rebellious, life-changing or breakthroughs of energy are really coming in. And for me, for a lot of us, I think it'll be a very internal kind of breakthrough. And then as we get out that Mercury retrograde, things will be a lot clearer. Just a lot of confusion around. But, you know, really take control and notice what's going on, because the results might not be instantaneous as well. That's the key we have to remember. It's astrology isn't like a wham bam, it's done. The energy ripples out. So, and ripples out into the basket, which maybe we should move on to.
And the other thing we just wanted to say about this energy is there's not a better energy for breaking out of your comfort zone than Urania and Gemini. So amplified by Mars, I would say, you know, really get curious, try something new. Don't be forced out of your stagnant routine. Choose something different. Yeah, play with the energy. Gemini is nothing if not.
Here we go. So I'm just going to pause the recording if you're still here, because we've just lost the internet. Hello, welcome back. We had some really interesting mercurial energies there where we both got booted out. So hopefully this is a continuation of our conversation. So Maria, just starting to talk about the basket, which is going to be happening on the 19th to the 22nd of July. Should we just go dive into it? Because it is a really rich level of astrology. And as always, I should point out to our listeners, when we get talking about something important or truthful, the internet usually cuts out. So let's hope we get through this podcast for the second half of the podcast. So, would you like to talk to us a little bit about the basket? Because there's so much to talk about, isn't there?
There is, and I just think it's really interesting. We're giving you a live demonstration of how to be flexible with Mercury Gemini energy. But this basket is another thing like the Urania Mars conjunction, which is going a little bit viral. There's a lot of hype, and it is a very interesting configuration. So I'll just give you a little bit of history around it. They're calling it Barbault Basket, which is an astrological configuration that appears basket shaped within an astrological chart, and it's composed of a series of sextiles, trines, and one opposition, which will be Jupiter to Plutonia, Leo to Aquarius. But this configuration was first spotted by an astrologer called Andre Barbault. So that's where we've got the name, the Barbault Basket. And he is quite famous in mundane astrology for his very accurate predictions. So he predicted things like the collapse of the Soviet Union, global economic issues, and probably most famously predicted the COVID pandemic. So a lot of astrologers were predicting the collapse of civilization for that time period, but very few actually said it would be caused by a pandemic, because Capricorn energy, Saturn energy, is not something that a lot of us associate with pandemics. That kind of belongs a little bit more to Neptune. But anyway, he's predicted these very significant points in human history. And he was, he's passed away now, but way back, he was talking about this basket configuration, which is coming up in mid-July, and it has been grasped by the internet astrologers. And it has now become this, spectacular manifestation portal. The codes are coming. So we just
We
want
are
to
recording. We are recording for it.
but we just wanted to talk a little bit about this basket, but also highlight the sensationalism that happens with certain moments and portal astrological days. Because although this is a very beneficial configuration, sextiles and trines are particularly helpful and beneficent astrologically, it has, as usual, been taken way out of context. We need to look at what was actually said by this astrologer. And we also need to take into consideration the other aspects that are happening, because we've also got Mercury retrograding during this time. We're going to be in the wake of this conjunction between Mars and Urania. So what Barbault was actually talking about was this being a significant moment in astrology as a continuation of the Saturn-Neptune conjunction. So he is, in his writing, really talking about how society has been forced to change and reconfigure itself since that conjunction, which happened in February, and marked the start of a lot of military action, which has reshaped the world and is still continuing to do so. And now we've got this Mars Urania coming through. So, the actual message has been taken slightly out of context. So, what we really need to think about here is yes, this is a series of positive aspects that are forming, but how it impacts you personally is very dependent on your own natal chart. And I'm sat here very smugly because I have my sun at 4 degrees of Aries, so I have lots of sextiles and trines and conjunctions. But you're close, you're only 1 degree.
I'm close. I'm going to take it as well.
So it really depends on your own natal chart, and it also, has to be looking at in the wider context of Mercury being retrograde and the Jupiter Plutonia opposition. Because this is interestingly, as I've mentioned lots of times, the halfway point of the cycle. It's their first opposition since they conjoined at the beginning of COVID. So, there is a definite rebellious, anarchistic energy that is in the air surrounding all of this. So I think the message that we're really trying to get across today is that astrology offers you opportunities. Astrology offers you gateways, whether they are positive or negative aspects. And it is up to you to utilize them, because just as we have to choose to respond to chaotic energy, we also have to choose to work with positive aspects, especially things like sextiles or trines, which are a little bit, you don't feel them as much as you do with a tense aspect. It's something you have to actively engage with, like Jupiter energy. And in astrology, it's all, Jupiter's bringing all of these blessings. And yes, but you have to engage with Jupiter. You have to go out there and be in the space where you can receive opportunity. You have to meet Jupiter halfway, you know.
Not just behind your laptop and expect everything to come to you. You're gonna have, yeah, you're right. You're gonna have to go out.
And yeah, magnetize it, work with it, use magic to utilize this energy. But also, be aware that anything that you are manifesting also has the imprint of Mercury retrograde, which, tends to slow things down a little bit. So it's really this kind of missing nuance that we
Mm.
find with internet astrology at the moment, which I'm finding really interesting.
And if I can add in a little extra nuance as well. So we both went down the basket rabbit hole yesterday, and a shout out to both SJ Anderson and Cosmic Owl, who are on Substack, because they have done further and deeper research, which sent me back down my favourite topics of the dwarf planets as well. So while we have this basket formation, we've got Jupiter, Urania, Neptunia, and Plutonia all at 4 degrees, having oppositions, trines, sextiles. All very nice in a basket. We can then add a handle to the basket as well, with the dwarf planet Haumea being in at 2 degrees of Scorpio. So she provides this kind of basket handle as well, which adds a whole different hi twinkle, adds a whole different energy to this as well, because she is the goddess of fertility, of rebirth, oh, hi truffles, of transformation. She is the collective awakening as well. So she is coming in into 2 degrees of Scorpio to have this handle and say, actually, there's more to this. So this for me feels like a gateway opening to regeneration and transformation, but not a wham bam, thank you, this is going to manifest really easily for you. To me, she's adding in this energy of exploring hidden realms. She is highlighting more of the occult, the metaphysical. So let's see what happens around there, but also telling us that Haumea in Scorpio, the interpretation very much is that it's growth at all costs. But whatever we have become, we birth whatever we've become in spite of our scars as well. So she's really asking us to bring a lot more energy, a lot more transformation, renewal, and rebirth to this overall energy of the chart. So Haumea is something that we'll be looking a lot more into as we dive more into the kind of the new goddesses of the Aquarian kind of cosmology and astrology. But the asteroid Hecate or Hecate, however you want to say it, is going to be at uh 4 degrees of Pisces, which is exactly between Pluto at 4 degrees of Aquarius and Neptunia at 4 degrees of Aries. Hecate, the guardian of the crossroads. And this feels really important that she's between these two planetary goddesses saying to you, which way are you going to choose? What is it that you want to birth? And it just feels that her energy is just coming in between these two planets just to say, hang on, you need to be aware of the dark face of the mother as well as this amazing manifestation portal. Because if we choose the wrong route as humanity, back down the AI route again, guys, we could move very into that technocracy, isn't it? And I was kind of looking at Barbault's language around this kind of period as well, and it's like, is it going to be a spiritual awakening, technological sedation? It's a whole field of possibility, but we as humans have to really choose. And I think adding in those extra energies of Hecate with the dark face of the mother and Haumea as the goddess of regeneration and rebirth are just bringing in and saying this is your time to choose wisely in what you are bringing forward. So I think for me, adding in those extra two goddesses just brings a deeper meaning that perhaps not everybody's really looking at because they're just looking at the main planets. But there's some different factors really coming in to say, hang on, this really is a choice point. Where are you going to go?
Absolutely. I think that's really interesting with this square to the nodes as well, isn't it? Which is ongoing with Uranus to the nodes, really up until they shift into Aquarius and Leo in August. So we know these are always kind of key choice points for humanity. And what I was thinking was really interesting is Haumea is also creating a bit of a fixed cross there as well, isn't she? She's opposite Chiron, square to Pluto, square to Jupiter.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got that real kind of cross of transformation. So there is that kind of multiple reflection of that crossroads type of energy. And I think that's something we all have to ask ourselves, isn't it? It's how do we choose to use these energies? Like we were saying before, it's all in our perspective of them and the way that we work with them through our own personal chart and through our own personal intentions. So we can see, the collective energy is often siphoned off in various ways, and people with no awareness aren't really choosing, are they? They're just being directed by the flow of the media, the Gemini. So again, it always comes back to during these times, doesn't it? Where are you placing your focus? But Haumea is a very interesting archetype in Scorpio. Is she also, because I know you've done a lot of research around this, and I'm probably remembering wrong or got her mixed up with one of the others, but is she also connected with volcanoes?
She is. You remember my ceremony very well, where we added in the energy of Haumea and cacao. Yeah, so she's deeply, she's a fire goddess, essentially. So she is the volcano of, constantly recreating because volcanoes destroy and rebirth and create new land all the time. So, yes, she is. So we've got that volcanic energy kind of adding into this basket in air and fire as well, which I think is really interesting. And as you were saying, that cross in the chart, I'm just doing the Kabbalistic cross as well. We're kind of talking and really thinking about how you need to be so centered at the moment and in this kind of energy of being centered and looking in all directions before you choose where you're going, because in this Mercury retrograde it's still not going to be super clear, because if we look at and I'm going off now, Jupiter, Urania, Neptunia, Plutonia all at 4 degrees. 4 in the tarot is stability, security, order, solid
Mm.
foundation, but we're in a Mercury retrograde. So it's like Haumea just comes in and just says, hang on, you're going to have to die and be rebirthed again and again and again until you've got these solid foundations. And I've just been so drawn to the asteroid Hecate at the moment as well. Obviously, Heka, magic. This for me feels like a very magically powerful energies to be really, really working with. But yes, back to your original. Haumea is often related to goddesses of, she's volcanic essentially. So, and I did loads of research, which I wish I pulled up now before we came on the podcast about this, but she's very much a fire goddess.
So yeah, it's that real kind of what I'm sensing as you're talking about that with her in Scorpio. It's like that black fire, isn't it?
Black flame of alchemy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
alchemy. And, that's very much in alignment with Hecate as well, who would be kind of trining her at the moment too.
Mm.
So I think those are some really interesting goddesses to reflect on, because I think that's what we're really learning as we go
Mm.
into the age of Aquarius, isn't it? Is that the power is always within us, which is what these ancient goddesses of magic would have been really trying to teach us, when we've been these priestesses in previous lifetimes. These
Yeah.
initiations that we went through would not have been easy. Um, so it's always, when we're having a difficult time with the energy, how do we work with that?
Mm.
How do we make that into a process of self actualization instead of projecting and blaming? And even, projecting and blaming onto the kind of powers that be outside of us as well, which is always easy to do. But what we're really here for is to use that black fire to purify and refine our soul.
Mm.
So difficult experiences are what propel us forward on the journey, really. So it's like, how can you use your magical techniques, your integration techniques? How can you reclaim your projections during this time? And when you're really irritated with somebody, like we do get with Mercury retrograde, it's like, what is that reflecting within me? And because this is all about family, of course, that pushes everyone's buttons to the next level, doesn't it?
Doesn't it
This is not
just?
just me that's angry, it's all of my ancestors. It's every woman that's ever been oppressed in my bloodline is now furious. And what do I do about that?
Well, may I just move on ever so slightly? Because it's funny you mentioned this kind of matriarchal line. It's funny you start talking about. You're just getting my notes because I want to absolutely get this right. Because credit to S.J. Anderson, another very talented astrologer who has found a second basket in 2027. So we're just going to touch on this briefly because this involves Ceres. I can never say her name correctly. Goddess of the harvest and grain, Urania, Neptunia, Plutonia, but Haumea still being in Scorpio, providing the basket. So everything moves to 6 degrees, essentially. But I don't know if this is Mr. or Mrs. Anderson. Anyway, S.J. Anderson says that they can really see through this second basket. So it's almost like we've got two gateways through the feminine and matriarchal archetypes. I want to do a lot more research before we dive into this a lot more. But given what you're saying about the ancestors, the matriarchy, the rage down the female line, is this an opportunity to see these strong archetypes being healed as the first basket, and in the second basket beginning to rise? There feels like I don't want to say a feminist struggle about to happen, but it feels like there is a certain resistance to these awakened energies, this fierce, fierce divine feminine side coming through. And as I'm kind of talking to you now, I can really see that frequency, that Babylonic current starting to really rise in women. You know, the red thread that binds us all, which is not, you know, sisterhood per se, but it's the deep Heka, isn't the deep magic, isn't it? And for both of us, Babylon is a very strong frequency. If you're watching this on YouTube, I'm Lilith Babylon today, you know, black but massively red lipstick. You know, that's what I'm really feeling through. And as I'm talking to you now, I'm just wondering, it's not just feminine and matriarchal archetypes. Is that a rebirth of Babylon? I need to check where Babylon asteroid is as well, but it does move into a more feminine planets and dwarf planets next time round. So just as you were talking about that, I was like, oh, hang on, is this the birth of something really big? So we can be positive astrologers now and just say, is this the resurrection of the Sophia energy, the Babylonic frequency, what the Gnostic energy, whatever it is that we want to call it? I just feel that's getting all kind of animated, but I just feel that that's really going to start coming up again. There's a few thoughts on next year's basket, but let's go back to this year's.
I think that's what all astrology is leading us to at the moment, isn't it? This is what the transition is into Aquarius from Pisces. And I think what's really interesting to be aware of is that as the aeons turn, the goddess incarnates in a different form.
Yeah.
Depending on the aeon. So in this previous aeon, you know, it's very much that Mary frequency. You know, she has been locked away in the churches, in the grottos, you know, she's clothed in blue. But that archetype is transforming as we come into the Aquarian age. So she comes forward now in a much more cosmic form with a chalice. You know, she's not necessarily that kind of watery, nurturing, soft energy anymore. She's more of a goddess that says, oi, come on, wake up. She is very much associated through the aeons with Inanna, with some very warrior-like archetypes from ancient Egypt. So I always feel that this transition that we're making, there has to be an element of fierceness awakening with the feminine as well. We can't just love these demons away. You know, we can't just manifest these things away. There has to be an actual uprising of some kind, which I think is Babylon.
It's always Babylon. But I just think it's really interesting because I'm just looking at my notes as you're talking and what Barbault actually said about this first basket in July this year as well, that actually there is a bit of a tension coming into it. And he says it's very much saw it as a portal and a seed moment. Basically, whatever we plant during this time will take time to grow. But he also saw it as being a place of a little bit of upheaval before we have the solidification of that for energy. So political challenges, shifts in leadership, you know, a bit of a reality check. He said through his work that the rebuild would be difficult. And that for me is that rising of the feminine, the suppression of it once again. But this is growing it and growing it. So whatever seeds we are planting now the mundane astrology suggests that that will grow and grow. So that really fits in to what he was saying through his research as well. And, he also says it's not the place where the work is done for you, it's for us to be doing the work. So that for me is a really wonderful interplay of how he was a very precise, very methodical computer kind of brain computer astrologer meets our very intuitive astrology, overlaying the two. You can really see that it's for us to enact the change, for us to bring through that Babylonic frequency and realize that the work is an initiation in itself.
I think that's the key to everything, isn't it?
Yeah.
We don't practice spirituality or magic to get something. That might be why we start, but ultimately it's about refining the soul. And I think those of us who are on the priestess path, our work is coming back lifetime after lifetime to make sure these new images of the feminine are resurrected. Yeah, to make sure she is always remembered in whichever form she is coming through next. But I think this transition requires a lot more fierceness
Great.
than previous times.
Not it's shedding the softness, isn't it? It's shedding the archetypical Magdalene Mary energy and actually reclaiming who we truly are beneath it all. It's the age of circles and being, soft circles is gone. We're now into that kind of self-sovereign grail bearer, fierce communities of women collaborating as opposed to moaning about what's going on. That's how I'd interpret it.
I think that's really interesting with that Leo to Aquarius polarity as well. So it is, like you say, it's much more a co-creative experience where we're all kind of like nodes in the web rather than a kind of hierarchical situation, because people are not going to tolerate that as we go into this opposition and into this nodal axis, which is going to be with us for quite some time, 18 months from August onwards. Eclipses in Leo and Aquarius, which I'm sure will get their own podcast.
Rude not to.
But I think it is this kind of balance, isn't it? It's you are sovereign, but you're also part of a community. So where do those edges meet? And I think what we don't want to do is repeat the same mistakes as the last turnings of the Aeon, where we all started to kind of turn against each other and point fingers. This group is evil. This group is, holding far too much wealth and power. We'll say they're heretics, or whatever it is. We'll burn their books.
I'll flood them out. Did that slip out?
Supposedly flooded.
But is God apparently.
But there is, we've said it before, there is this interesting Christian resurgence. There's been, again, in the kind of spiritual community this week, there's been backlash, very famous personalities returning to Christianity.
Oh, yes, I saw that actually, which is their personal choice. And I think there was a very interesting backlash against that as well, when actually they've gone away to do it quietly. And then there's been kind of like a bit of a shock and awe. I think everyone is still working through the Doreen Virtue trauma, if I'm honest.
Well, I think she was the first, wasn't she? The first big name. And I think what happens is people come onto a spiritual pathway and they expect it to be love and light and roses. So when they reach a threshold of initiation, or they start to see things
Mhm.
more clearly, they start to see through maybe some of the kind of false light energy, and they hit that wall, they kind of retreat back and be like, oh, I've got to go back into something that feels, safe and cozy and light. I can't
Mm.
push through to the other side of that. I think that's what happens. People meet their own shadows and fears through what they project out, to be evil. But it's generally just a misunderstanding of archetypical influences. So that's why Babylon is the goddess of the new aeon, hey, because she accepts all things, even those things that are taboo and reviled. She doesn't just love the light.
Absolutely. We are going to come on to talk about Babylon in a second. I just want to slip something in for our British listeners. During this basket, because I'm intrigued and I'm not making any predictions, but Barbault did say in this basket there'll be severe political challenges and major shifts in leadership. Andy Burnham, ye who has recently been re-elected to Parliament, the King of the North, if all goes well to his plan, he gets declared as leader by a special conference of the Labour Party on the 17th of July and becomes his first working day, potentially as Prime Minister, on the 20th of July. Slap bang in the basket. I'm not going to say any more. I just think that is a really interesting gift in leadership. And what comes from that could be quite interesting and could stoke rebellion, particularly if my sources are correct. He's going to be bringing back in people who are not currently elected MPs back into his cabinet, which he can do by electing them or nominating them to the House of Lords and then bringing them back into cabinet. So who knows what is going to happen with Andy Burnham, but given the fact that it's in the middle of the basket, given the fact that Barbault said it could be some shift in leadership, I just want to slip that in and let's see what happens.
I've just quickly got his birth chart up
Ooh.
as you were talking, and he's very, very Capricornian. So we've got Sun, Venus, Moon, and Mercury, all in Capricorn. No birth time known. Mars in Pisces. So make of that what you will. Nothing impacted by the basket. I was just having a quick look for anything around 4 degrees.
I was just mentioning that having had done a bit of quick research on his sudden and rapid rise to power, I thought that date was a very interesting date to choose. Not that the powers that be know astrology. Anyway, shall we slide back into She Who Rides the Seven-Headed Beast and mention Babylon once again? Because basket aside, we do have a little something very special and very Babylonic for you. Shall I say, or do you want to say?
You can go ahead.
Okay, so for 4 weeks in August, we are throwing open the temple doors and we are going to be running the pathway of the Scarlet Priestess. So it is an introduction and dive into the frequency and energy of Babylon. We'll be tracing her all the way through ancient Sumeria, through her mention in Revelation, to the great magician of D. Crowley and Parsons. And we are also going to be showing you how to work with the energies of Babylon, how to start to embody that frequency within your daily lives. I can't wait because it's a mixture of historical teaching, it's a mixture of magic, it's a mixture of initiation and rituals and ceremonies. I actually want to do the course myself, even though we're co-writing it together, but we will be starting that at 6 p.m. BST on the 6th of August, which is a Thursday evening here in the UK, timed perfectly as well for our American sisters to join us. Everybody is welcome, but it is going to be a I say this not particularly lightly, it's going to be quite a life-changing course. If you are ready to dive into a scarlet frequency, this is going to be the place. And of course, you'll have us delightful beauties teaching you for 4 weeks.
Yeah, I think it's not for everyone, but if it is for you, then you will know. So for me, Babylon is very much the guardian of the deep magic. She is the kind of physical incarnation of the goddess on earth at any given moment. We like to say she's the red daughter of the blue mother. So she is this ancient thread that reaches back through the aeons with some goddesses you will be very familiar with. And these goddesses, like Babylon herself, have a red energy to them. So they are alive, they are embodied, and they're also slightly fierce. So I think, our intention with this course is to really create the gateway for those who wish to know this archetype, to wish to help her rebirth, to pick up the threads of the previous magicians who she has revealed herself to. For those of you that wish to know her, that wish to touch the magic and, really change your own life through working through her frequency, this is the gateway. And we don't just do it for ourselves, but to give her space to manifest and lead us through this Aquarian Aeon, because the significance of her chalice cannot really be denied. I think when we look at this turning of the aeons.
So exciting. I've just got a quote: beautiful art thou, O Babylon, and desirable, for thou hast given thyself to everything that liveth, and thy weakness hath subdued their strength. She's those magical luring words. It is going to be an incredibly powerful and transformative 4 weeks. So we will pop all the booking details underneath in the show notes. Before Mercury throws us off again, Maria, it's been an absolute pleasure as always. Thank you so much.
It's been so lovely. We managed to make it to the end, which is always good when Mercury is retrograde.
Looks like we made it.
Not
Not break into
Shania
song.
Twain on that note.
I wish you all star fire blessings. Thank you so much for listening. If you are listening on Substack, if you could like, comment, subscribe. And we would be really grateful for your love, your comments, and your conversation. So until next time, thank you so much for listening. Take care.